Hello, everybody. Welcome to another author interview. I am joined by a very special guest today. We have none other than Miss Alyssa Hazel joining us today.
Hello, hello,
Hello, hello, everybody.
hello.
We are going to have so much fun talking about books, writing, and all that fun stuff. How are you doing, Alyssa? I hope all is well.
Uh, yep, everything is pretty much ship shape.
Amazing.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, we'll go right ahead into it. Yeah, so I think we've had quite a bit of authorial discussions on X in the past, where we've given our own kind of like thoughts and commentary, both in reading and writing. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, just kind of like learning just your overall thoughts on books, what sort of like inspired you in general. But I'll go ahead and start off with a fun first question. So, I'll go ahead and ask this. What was the story that made you want to be an author?
Well, that's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly. I've always been writing. I think my first couple little things were in like um, summer enrichment programs back in the day, and I've also uh, I still have things left over from like grade school things, but
Hmm.
I think if anything really inspired me into writing, it's my dad growing up would actually tell us stories that he would create in his head um about the adventures of the children of Joe and Broomhilda,
Yeah.
as they're like going through the woods and like uh, outwitting goblins that they would find there, or dealing with the various kind of things. And um, I think that's probably where my love for storytelling started, because my dad did that growing up, and he was our first GM. Honestly, I think that's where it started. Um, but
So
I yeah.
I am kind of curious. Joe and Brunhilde, are those characters your dad came up with? Are they D&D characters or are they something else?
They are characters that he came up with, though I think they were basically supposed to be uh him and my mom. Because Joe and Broomhilda had had a couple daughters, so and I have four sisters, so I think they're mostly supposed to be him and my mom. They
Yeah.
are very much in love. I think I'm trying to remember. I think they got married in the 80s, so they've been married for a good long time. So it's I think that was the foundation for those two characters.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear,
Yeah.
and that's quite a way to get into the authorial mindset, especially starting off. We are joined by quite a few people in the chat tonight.
Nice.
We have Sir Robert Wild in the Twitch chat. He says, "Hail, my lord, and the literacy queen." Hail,
Thank
Robert.
you. Thank you. Hey, thank you.
I hope all is well. We're also joined
Mhm.
by Wrangler, of course. He says, "A whole lot of hola, like, subscribe, and share."
Hey.
Exactly, if I am to shill. Please like, subscribe, and share. It's so wonderful. I really
Mhm.
appreciate it. It gives me all the fish I could ever want. And last but not
Yes.
least, how do I say this?
Oh, we got
Scardus?
scar tissue story pod.
Oh
Scar
yeah, yeah,
tissues.
that's right.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, geez, Alyssa, are you my kid? I'm a GM for my kids and tell them made up stories all the time. I've noticed that this is kind of a thing with like
Hey,
DM
Timo.
fathers. Hail Timo, welcome to the chat as well.
Yeah.
Is that it seems that you kind of get into D&D sort of like around kind of like your teenage years, and then like once you become like a mother or father, it's like that gets passed on and all these
Yeah.
amazing stories kind of go down from one generation to the next.
Yeah. And the fun part was when you have five children, you basically have your D&D party right there. So
Yeah,
life hack: if you can't if you can't find a D&D party to GM for, just make one.
exactly. I mean, it's smart if nothing else.
Adapt, improvise, overcome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a whole lot of fun, that's for sure.
Mm.
But yeah, we've got a few of your books up here on
Yeah.
stream. Let me go ahead and see if I can bring up some of the artwork here. I'm super
Hmm.
excited to share some of it. Let's see. We'll go ahead and share probably one of your most popular novels, The Third Test, which is quite a
Hmm.
lot of fun to watch. Or I
See.
should say read, not necessarily watch, unless there's going to be a Netflix adaptation here soon.
I kind of hope not. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I mean, I sometimes I think would I want my book adapted, and there's a part that says yes, but also not now, if that makes sense.
No, I
Um,
completely understand.
yeah. Give a couple studios a couple more years to finally realize what makes money, and then go back to it. Um, yeah, this was a fun kind of project because I think I've mentioned on Twitter before um, that usually when I make covers or do the design process, if I have money, I'll hire a human artist, but usually I don't have a lot of money on hand, so I'll use Canva. So this cover was actually designed using Canva assets alongside the second initiative, and I think they turned out pretty good, considering that at conventions they are picked up as much as the ones where I've done human art as well.
Yeah.
So it's a I think for it being uh basically the cost of a Canva subscription, yeah, I think they were both pretty solid.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Skullgrin 140 says the artwork of the covers is pretty stunning. I
Thank
concur.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's cycle through a few more of them. There's that
Yeah.
one. There's the Twitching Light Omnibus. Um, yeah, I really
So
like the painterly cover behind this one. Really nice.
yeah, the artist who did it is he did the original piece for me uh back in 2019 when the book was released. And so this is actually more of the full picture of the piece now.
Hmm.
Um I think I have the full picture up on actually. Okay.
Oh,
I so that was originally in the nursery, and I was like, we're gonna be using that soon. So I moved it to that spot specifically so that when my husband gets up in the middle of the night and looks down the hall, he'll be struck in the face by that that picture.
amazing.
Um,
I
yeah,
absolutely love it.
I'll move it at some point.
At some point.
At some point.
It
Um,
has its place.
yeah. Well, that were well, originally it was in our quote unquote office.
Yeah.
But the office became the nursery, and now the landing is the office. So adapt, improvise, overcome,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah.
Adapting, I feel like it like we love to talk about limitations, but it's also
Mhm.
adapting to unique problems. I feel like that's where we get some of our best story ideas too.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you've come across that in your own experience writing, just kind of like where a weird sort of problem presents itself where you're like, I'm not necessarily sure how to do this, but either thinking about it or somebody gives you a suggestion and you're like, "Oh my god, this just made it 10 times better."
Well, I think with all of my books so far, also thank you, Timo, for the compliment. You're not the first one, but it's actually modeled after the stepchild of the artist. Make of that what you will. um,
Does that mean
but
there's an
also
Alyssa Hazel clone out there?
maybe. Uh, but also among the juniper trees, that was done by Lucy Erb, who is on Instagram as Luna's Fairy Emporium. She is fantastic. She is I believe, watercolor artist, which watercolor and a little bit of ink. I believe, and she just does a fantastic job. I would recommend checking out her Instagram just to see all the because she always puts up pictures of her work, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, Beyond the
Little bit
Juniper
of
Trees, that cover is my personal favorite. I
yeah.
adore that cover. Like it looks incredible.
The yes, it is. I was trying to make sure it wasn't on the wall over there. Um, I love both covers. I feel like there's something beautifully expressive about the piece. When I was looking for the artist, I specifically wanted something that was going to look like, I think it's called the wood blocking technique from old printed versions of the Grimm's fairy tales,
Hmm.
because the Among the Juniper Trees and Beyond the Juniper Trees are both modeled after um, sort of the old Grimm's tale sensibilities, where it's fantasy kind of, but it's more a standard world, but with some fantastical elements to it that just kind of turn the world upside down.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a kind of homage to the story, The Juniper Tree, which is cited as one of the Grimm's brothers, one of their more dark tales. So I highly recommend checking that out for yourself, just to um, see how grisly it could get. But no, I'm personally very fond of both pieces. Now, they were, let's just say, an investment,
Sounds
and
about
it
right.
was, yeah, they were an investment. And they were worth every penny in my estimation. Uh, but it's also the reason why I haven't yet adapted uh, Beyond Among the Juniper Trees and Beyond the Juniper Trees into audiobooks, because when you invest more into one area, sometimes you have to hold off on other areas until you've made back on that investment a little bit more. But it is doing that adaptation is on the pipeline somewhere. I just gotta make sure I have enough gathered up for it when the time comes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like you said that you got your money's worth. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
for me, like if especially with my budget when it comes to like book covers, like
Mm.
it may be an investment, but I see this as 100% worth it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Uh, one of my goals one day is to do uh be able to hire a neutron board to do a cover and some illustrations. That might be a special edition of my I call it the Helios trilogy when the time comes. I think he would just do a really fantastic job capturing my sci-fi. But again, that's going to be uh, a project for well into the future when I have the funds to invest into that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. And
yeah.
like I'm more than willing to help out in any way I can. I've worked with Neutron Bore in the past. His work is
Yeah. No.
fantastic. And
Yeah. I see it all the time in yours and Timo's work, and he is also one of those artists that I think are well worth their money.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
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 But let's see. Random question. I am kind of
Hmm.
curious about this because I feel like whenever we break down different writers and kind of like the work that they come across, because you've done quite a wide variety of stories yourself.
Hmm.
I am curious. There's usually the terminology of the gardener, the architect, where it's like the gardener is sort of like planting seeds and allowing their garden to grow organically. It's like maybe it's walled in to a slight extent, but more or less these ideas are allowed to flourish and just go where they will. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
the architect is kind of like planning out every individual part of what they're building, and then it's pretty much made to a T. And usually there's a middle ground as well. So I am
Mhm.
curious, as far as writing your stories, where would you say that you kind of fall along that whole spectrum?
Well, Well, I think it kind of depends on what I'm writing. My short stories, I tend to sit down and write in one thing. So maybe I'll have a couple ideas going into it and then I'll just have at it. With my longer novels, I tend to have a couple maybe a little bit of an outline. But I would say uh I'm probably closer to a gardener because there is some method to how I start the story, but oftentimes the story takes on a life of its own. And usually by three-quarters of the way through the first draft, I'll realize something about the story where it's like, okay, well, this was a fun start to the draft, but I need to go back and reintegrate this idea into the story earlier. So I am just going to go ahead and start the story from the beginning, reintegrating this idea and then going from there. So I would say I'm probably closer to a gardener. I guess if I want to get a little bit more like clinical in the terminology, I would say I'm more of um a scientist, so to speak, where I set up the experiment and then I see how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, when I was writing the second initiative, I did not make any plans as to how the last sort of showdown happened. So I don't want to spoil anything, but from the moment the gangsters arrive on the second initiative, I had nothing planned because I knew um this was going to be like a the heads will roll.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be all instinct and very little plan because I knew that it was just going to be a collision between the people on the satellite and the gangsters, and I couldn't plan where the shrapnel was going to fall.
Hmm.
So I had to kind of just write as it went and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it turned out pretty well. I
Yeah.
didn't plan any deaths or who was going to get shot or anything, but when by the time it got to the end, everything just felt like it made sense.
And I do also want to ask, have you come across in your stories where it just feels like, as Bob Ross would put it, happy little accidents where you kind of come across a weird quirk in the story and it's kind of like we've been going over sort of like the ideas of gardening where it's like you sort of like look at the story three-quarters of the way through and you realize something.
Mhm.
Where I'm guessing there were some happy accidents in there, at least a few,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. In let's see. In Beyond the Juniper Trees, and I don't think this is exposed too much, but when I was going into it, I wasn't quite sure of the nature of one I would say like the main antagonist. And I didn't so there was the main antagonist. Let me rewind actually. So there's two real antagonists in actually there's technically three, but
Hmm.
uh the first part of the story focuses in on dealing with Lady Kretzia Thane.
Yeah.
And she is uh I wasn't quite sure of her nature when I was starting the story. And about uh near the end, and it's kind of like almost through it, I sort of got this idea about the House of Thane having a lot of dealings with the undead and the recently dead and that kind of thing and spiritual kind of matters. Um, so I kind of went back and I wanted to add that in for one character. And I don't want to do any spoilers, but he ends up becoming kind of like a Lord of the Dead kind of person.
Yeah, I've read
Eh,
your second book as well, and I I know where you're going with it. I'll
Yeah,
keep my mouth shut.
yeah. But the other thing is, I was writing this female villain, and I just kind of realized at some point I'm writing a Hammer horror story, like a classic gothic castle, creepy stuff, evil matriarch, like
Good evening.
Christopher Lee Hammer horror production. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. And I had a lot of fun in that sort of mini climax where it's just like these couple guys just going full like I have mixed feelings about Francis Ford Coppola, but his Dracula adaptation, but just going in and just classic vampire slaying and dealing with these undead wenches, and it's like this just feels very pulpy and just delicious. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a happy accident
Yeah, what's
point.
writing if you're not having fun while writing?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So
Um.
Robert Wild, he was asking, are you a pantser or a plotter? Yeah, we pretty much just answered the question.
Hmm.
Yeah, Alyssa, I'd say that you're more of a leaning more towards being a pantser.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh. Definitely. It's my favorite type of tank.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Let's
And
see.
everyone leaves the chat.
Also, we're joined in the chat by RH Snow in X. She says, "You
Hey.
are here. I pile a bunch of poop into an idea pile and just start digging. Then I let it compost." She's talking about story ideas.
Hey, listen, that's basically gardening, I'm pretty sure. There's some stuff in there.
Yeah, she adds on to it saying, "Just plant a happy little body over here. Just look at that little gun."
You look at that little guy grow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. So this is going to I know this is going to spiral into a different conversation. But I am curious. So we've talked about different pieces of fiction and nonfiction
Mhm.
and how it's affected our writing. Um, how would you say that certain books you've read in the past, whether they be like novels or more kind of like nonfiction territory, how might have this changed your writing?
Well, there are a couple different books I would uh, kind of point to as being influential to my work. Back when I was in my sort of origin as weird fiction and horror short stories, um, I read actually because I was going through like a self improvement kind of phase over COVID. I read a lot of like relational books,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing, and just looking at like dynamics. And there was one called Safe People, which is about like uh becoming somebody trustworthy and reliable and that kind of thing, but also looking at how to identify people who are not reliable and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I took a lot of those ideas and another one called Boundaries and sort of just looked at how good relationships work and how people connect on a healthy level and things like that, but also how to flip it on its head and create really terrible, awful dynamics. And did a lot of that in my horror work, but I think the reason why my characters work so well, I mean, as far as I know, people have told me nice things about my characters. I think the reason why people like them so well and like feel for them is that I try my best to create their dynamics based on like real issues, real connections, real points of tension between the two of them. Um, and try not to make it cartoonish or comical, even though there are going to be funny moments as a result of people's personalities clashing. Um, and then I would also say that going back and reading, I think the book that really kind of tilted me towards like actually being going from pretty decent to good, I would say was James Clavell's Shogun.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting
I wa
choice.
I was at a let's see, I had just finished To Those Who Haunt You. I was at a convention, MarsCon. It's the same one a couple years ago, and I asked somebody because I was thinking about Among the Juniper Trees, and I wanted to create something that was kind of almost historical fiction, but not quite that, but still fantasy.
Right, right.
And I asked somebody for a recommendation, like, "Hey, have you?" He's like, "Well, I don't really know a lot of those kind of things, but I would recommend Shogun because it's historical, but it's like a historical fictional like the historical fiction romance with a hard R kind of romance."
Right, right.
So I was like, "Okay," and the show was being adapted, so I was like, "Okay, let me just get a copy of it and read it." And it did two things for me. It reminded me how books work. I
Mhm.
know that sounds very odd, but it's how books connect and how prose connects with other things and how things transitional phases. And up to that point, I'd worked with a lot of short stories, and like my and the third test, which is a short novel, it's not very big. um but it reminded me of like formatting and how to create things that are a little bit more beautiful and dense, and how different factions connect to each other. And I read it in about a month, and I really enjoyed it. Um, but it challenged me because it was like, okay, this is actually a good book. This is a book that has lasted. I think it was published in the 70s, so it's been out for around 50 years now,
Mm.
and it's lasted for a reason. Like when you get to the very end and you're like, ah, like, because if you've read Shogun, those last couple lines hit like a freight train.
Yeah.
And it ignited my love of reading and reminded me what a book could really be. And it challenged me to make Among the Juniper Trees so much better and so much richer. Now, that being said, the fan favorite is the third test and second initiative. So as normally would have it, the book that you put more time and effort and money into is the one that doesn't do as well, but still does well. So it's just, oh. But
Yeah. I
it's still challenged me to become a better a better reader. And that's why whenever I have a break between books, I read books that make me want to like sit in a bathtub and cry because I'll never be as good as so and so. But it'll remind me this is how good books can be.
well, I've heard this bit of advice before. One of the best ways to become smarter or more adept at a skill is to surround yourself with people or even voices where it's like who are all smarter than you or more skilled than you. So it's like you can
Mhm.
absorb that from them. And
Mm,
I know where you were saying about this, especially with Shogun. It kind of reminds me of some of my experiences as well, where it's like every now and again, it seems like there's a book we come across where it just reminds us on why we love reading, and
mm,
that sounds like one of those books. Um,
yeah.
I know a
It
recent book I was coming across recently was Catch 22, which is a
hmm,
fantastic book. But that
is that one Vonnegut or is that somebody else?
let me look up the author's name. I feel like such an
I
idiot.
don't. I don't think it's Vonnegut, but there's a part of me that's like, is it Vonnegut? I'm trying to remember in my brain.
Joseph Heller wrote it in
Yeah,
the 60s. It is literally a war satire story, but I kid you not, it is
I
beautifully written.
I feel like you mentioned this to me a while back when you were initially reading it. Um, that it was just a really good book. Forget how the conversation went entirely, but I remember you talking about it. No, it's that's pretty good. I've Michael Michael Crichton's been kind of one of those authors for me recently too.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because I've heard you talk about Michael Crichton here quite a bit lately. How's your reading experience been with Michael Crichton? I actually have I've been seeing your posts about it, and it
Yeah,
actually inspired me to get a copy of Jurassic Park. I had read some
yeah.
of it years ago, but I was still in like public school whenever I read it, and
Mm.
I didn't really appreciate it. So I'm kind of curious how it seems like he's had a certain effect on kind of like your reading experience.
Well, Michael Crichton to me is kind of because I listen, before I say this, I'm a very delusional person as a rule. Like I get by on delusion alone. I've built my writing career on being just a delusional person in general. I make my goals through delusion.
I think we
Speaking
writers are
my
very guilty of that.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Michael Crichton to me is like the my anime rival in my head. I kind of hate him, but I like him at the same time. And
Yeah,
this is why he has no right to be as like good as he was. Like he has no right to be blessed in so many ways. Like he has no right to be 6'7" and like played basketball and has a doctorate and went to medical school and wrote Jurassic Park as like he has no right to
he wrote it
basically
on the side to make money, wasn't it?
yeah. He wrote it most people write books and don't sorry, that's the dog. Don't worry, it's there's no collar.
Right now we're
anyways,
getting
anyways.
people in the chat spamming 6767.
Terrible, terrible. But like literally literally he has no right. And then like makes like most people write books and lose money. He wrote it to pay for medical school and he succeeded.
And then some.
And then some. And he also writes noir because why not? And he wrote yes, that is actually that Timo, that is the reason why it tipped me over the edge. It tipped me over the edge, Timo.
That comment is brutal, Timo.
He's not allowed he's not allowed to write these many good books as a side quest and do medical school and be a doctor and also be 6 feet.
Now I just imagine like you going to a convention, meeting Michael Crichton, and the first question is just,
No. Here's the worst part.
"Oh,
He's
okay.
dead. I
Oh,
can't be that mad at him
okay, now I feel
because
really dumb for saying it. Ignore
yes,
me."
it's like I can't even confront him for being a too perfect of an individual because he's dead.
Well, in this hypothetical scenario, if you were to meet Michael Crichton at a convention, I just picture
I'm
the first
I'm
question in my
5
head.
foot I'm 5'3/4" of an inch. I'm not even in the same stratosphere as Michael Crichton.
Sir Michael Crichton, why are you so tall? Oh my god.
I'll be honest. Okay, all right, all right. This is kind of I'm not embarrassed of this, but it's okay. I met the gal who plays why is my brain going completely blank right
No,
now? It's
you're
so
good.
stupid.
You're
All
absolutely
right.
fine.
In Starship Troopers.
Oh, Dina Meyer.
That yeah, I met Dina Meyer. I see her. I to get a picture, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, "Oh, "You're so tall," and she replies, "I'm wearing boots." And then I get the picture, and then I leave. But it was I blame the pregnancy hormones. I think I was like 3 to 4 months pregnant at the time, so
Yeah,
all of my actions can be excused by hormones of some kind at this point. So
I had a similar experience whenever I actually got to meet Critical Drinker in person. First reaction is, I pictured the guy being a little taller than me, but he was like towering over me. I'm like, what is going on?
it's not fair. They're not
Yeah,
allowed to. They're not allowed to be like wildly successful and tall. What is this
yeah.
trash?
I'm like, I feel like a hobbit in this world, you know? It's like the world's so much bigger than me, and I'm just trying to live a simple life.
Which is okay. Now that I'm thinking about it, and not to bring us back to books and other silly nonsense things, in Eaters of the Dead, it reminds me. It makes it even funnier because there was a point in Eaters of the Dead where Ivan, I think that's how you pronounce his name,
Hmm.
keeps referring to the Norsemen as giants.
Yeah.
And at one point in the book, he has a he has a footnote that says uh skeletons at the time from Scandinavia measured 5'7".
Yeah, that sounds about
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and just picturing him like hunched over his computer writing that and laughing a little. It's like, really, Michael? Are you gonna bully the short king?
Like, come on. Come on, Michael.
Are you gonna bully Muslim Bilbo like this?
This kind of reminds me of
Leave him some dignity.
now we're getting into the whole height discussion. What is it? Like, I haven't been to Edgar Allan Poe's house,
Mhm.
though like I've had family members who've been like
Yeah.
in some of the places he lived in. First thing they always tell me is, Otter, like you have no idea how small those doorways are. It's like the guy was tiny. Like, okay, well now we
Well,
know. Now we know.
yeah. I mean, I went to his house and the door seemed great. They seemed
Maybe it's great for me. Who knows? Who knows? I'm not
they,
exactly a tall otter.
uh, yeah. Being
Oh
tall is
god.
overrated, I say, as someone who needs a step stool to get to the
I know,
tops
right?
of my.
Also, Captain
Yeah.
Lysol says in the Twitch chat, he had a question.
Okay.
What drew you to horror as a genre?
Well, I don't know who's this. Opa! I got my Junji Ito mug with me today.
Oh, I love
I've
Junji Ito.
I was born and raised on horror. When you have five daughters, you can find out which ones share a specific interest with you, and you can go from there. I grew up watching the Universal monster movies, reading Lovecraft, and Edgar Allan Poe. So most of my childhood was built on these guys, and I don't know. I've just always been fascinated by that and all these things and Goosebumps and um I don't know if you can tell. I was also kind of a weird kid. So when you have that, you love horror, and you're also like bullied a little bit at school. Like, how can you tell? Uh,
Well, we just got off a whole height discussion.
add that also being fat. So like combination of two things that are guaranteed to put your status higher on the totem pole. Um
Don't worry. The excess of fish has made this otter a little chubby, so I can
yeah.
relate.
But but yeah, so I grew up on all of these things. I've always also enjoyed monsters as well, just
Mm.
in general. Um so having that and just in that environment, um I don't know, a lot of stuff just came out of me, or I would have like weird kind of creepy ideas. Okay, that sounds a little wrong. Cut that from the YouTube, the live stream later editor. But I don't know. I've always just had that overactive imagination as well. One example is I lived before where I'm now living. I lived in a house that was over 100 years old,
Mhm.
and somebody had come in while it was vacant and stole all of the doorknobs.
What?
Bec- Yeah, because you can steal these antique doorknobs and sell them for metal. Sell them metal.
Oh, I see now.
Yeah, so the owner had to replace all the doorknobs with like I think they just grabbed like a bunch of them. So in my head, I was like, what if these doorknobs were haunted?
An
Like,
interesting idea.
yeah, and I'm not gonna tell you which story it is, but I just was like, what if a serial killer took a doorknob from each house that he burned down as a trophy? Um,
Oh, yeah. Oh my god. I am having a bit of a revelation here on my side. I see now. I
yeah,
never put two and two together there.
yeah. So I just wrote that story, and it just little things like that, like going into kind of weird places and seeing that kind of thing. I've never actually encountered a ghost. I've been in some places where I'm like, I feel like something's off, and then I leave that area quickly because I
Yeah,
just
I've
don't.
had that too.
Yeah. Um. So so I like depart quickly, but it's I don't know. That's where my first love is horror and the horror genre. Um, I love especially like the 80s and the synth and just it's just I love it all so much.
I gotta ask a
So
random
mhm,
question.
mhm.
So we were kind of touching a little bit on Goosebumps. Did you have an episode of Goosebumps that freaked you out as a kid?
Okay, yes. Okay.
Okay,
There
here
it
we
was
go.
the episode. Okay, so it's the episode with the where the adults had gone missing and it was Halloween and they're trick or treating, and the two kids bully them,
Hmm.
and the big reveal is that the two kids that are with them are aliens who claim to eat people,
Oh my god.
and the after they chase away the bullies, the aliens like, oh, don't worry, we don't eat like kids and stuff, we just eat fat adults.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one. It's like a
And I
haze. It's coming back now.
Yeah, and they're like, just don't eat too much. And I was a chubby kid. So like I'm not okay, all right. I'm not saying that I didn't become chubbier than I was because of that episode. But I am saying I maintained a couple pounds over what I should have been for most of my life. I'm not yeah.
Oh.
Where did your eating disorders come from? I got my eating disorder from Vogue magazine. Those models like imprinted on me. Where did you get yours from?
Just don't ever instate the fish tax, or you'll be very chubby like me. Then it'll all be over.
Goosebumps. Yeah.
Also,
But
Darren Calhoun asks, "Is it the dummy?" No, that's mine. That was the episode that freaked me out as a kid.
yeah, the dummy is like a quintessential episode. But
Really good.
for some reason though, he reminds me a lot of Freddy Krueger, where I just don't find him scary because by the time I watched the movie for the first time, he had become like the pop figure Freddy Krueger,
Oh
where it
yeah.
was just like I can't be frightened of you because you're kind of like everybody's uncle that shows up once every so often.
I'd watched the episode, what was it? Night of the Living Dummy 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And like it's a good episode. You actually get to see like a younger Hayden Christensen in that episode, which is really funny.
I think
Uh
I remember that. Ryan Gosling, I think, it was one of his first ones.
yeah, but what was creepy about it, and this is what actually scarred young me, was that you had like puppet like I'm forgetting the dummy's name. What is it? Slappy.
Slappy.
Yeah, that's it. And, it's like, you have Puppet Slappy, like, the actual, like, ventriloquist dummy, but then every now and again, you would just get, like, a kid in a suit wearing the mask, like, running around very, like, strangely, and I'm
um,
like, that was the
like
part that was freaking me out.
the uncanny valley kind of
Oh, yeah.
effect.
Yeah,
Nice, nice.
absolutely. Graph Paper Architect says in the chat, "Glad you had a cool interview, love the post, and look forward to reading you soon, Alyssa. Sub Lord Otter, good journey, everyone." God
Good
bless, sir.
journey.
What a Chad.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh,
Uh Darren Calhoun says then we got Chucky. And that to me, yeah, Chucky is kind of weird watching the Child's Play. Watching it back later on, it's actually a very effective movie. Like you wouldn't I'm not saying you wouldn't expect the first Child's Play movie to actually be a good movie, but it actually is if you look at it sideways.
I will be honest
The
with you. I've
You
never
haven't
seen
seen it?
Child's Play. I feel
You should
bad.
watch it. It has the guy who plays Prince Humperdinck in it.
Oh,
Chris Sarandon.
yeah.
It's
I've been
also
meaning to watch it for a while. It's just I've never gotten around to it. It's one of those movies.
well, yeah. Well, when you get the chance, I'd recommend it. It's got Brad Dourif. It's got Brandon Sarandon. I think not Brandon. Chris Sarandon. Chris Sarandon.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. It's just really effective because like he doesn't move for the longest time, and it's just very psychologically like kind of driven, where you almost forget that he's supposed to be moving. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a good. It's a okay. I won't say it's a great movie, but it's like surprisingly a solid film.
Yeah, it's a solid movie.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, this I actually did have a question on it, but
Mhm.
I kind of have a feeling I already know the answer.
Okay.
So I was gonna ask if writing horror was kind of like a challenge compared to like writing sci-fi or something. I'm gonna presume possibly no, maybe.
Um, I would say of the different genres I've tackled, um, I would say fantasy is probably the hardest. I feel like,
Hmm.
because I feel like sci-fi feels like a very natural transition out of horror. In fact, there's a lot of horror elements in all of my books. Um, and sci-fi just feels like the most natural inclination off of it. Fantasy, I'm not saying fantasy requires world building, but it requires a lot. And maybe it was just like the nature of the two books I wrote, because it actually had a world in the court system, and you had to actually kind of write things down before you go into it. But with me, with sci-fi, I felt like I could just like go in and write without worrying too much about things, because I didn't. The plan wasn't to get in too much into the science of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Wrangler. Alien is a great example where you don't necessarily need to describe everything that's going on. Like you
Right.
don't have to say where except for like Prometheus, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk
Um
about that one.
where but you can basically you don't have to explain the alien for the science fiction to be effective, if that makes sense. Um for me, fantasy is just, I would say, is probably of the three genres I've tackled is probably the most difficult. Um, I haven't. There's probably going to be some ones that I don't, some genres I don't tackle, but I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, because uh my next project is going to be the end to the trilogy of the third test, second initiative, and then I'm working on one. Sorry, that's my water heater going off.
No,
Uh,
it's good. I don't even hear it on
yeah.
my side.
Okay, that's good. Is the last one is called going to be called the First and Final Sovereign. Because I figured that'd be a good title for both plot related reasons, but also I felt like the 3-2-1 thing needed like a indication somehow that this is actually also the final book in the trilogy. Um, the joke is me, actually. The joke is me for titling something the third test and making it standalone, and then it becoming popular. So I have to figure out how to
Those
work a
sequel names, I remember
Yeah,
hearing you talk about sequel names and
yeah,
going like, "Oh, it's the second book, but I named the first one the third test. How do I count from here?"
yeah. No, because I'm not going upwards, because everyone's gonna be like, "Where's the first two books?" So
It's like you're saying the fourth test is like the second book? Wait, what?
yeah, basically. So yeah. The So back to your question, yeah. I would say for me personally, sci-fi just feels more natural, oddly enough, than fantasy. But I felt like the fantasy, because it was a little bit more difficult for me, was also very rewarding when it ended up landing the way it did.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't gotten a whole lot of feedback about Beyond, but everything's been positive. So um, I think it everything wrapped up very well.
I was
So
kind of curious because you were talking about like fantasy and horror. It's
mhm,
kind of like a weird dichotomy, and this is coming from like a fantasy writer himself. Like I always
mhm,
saw like fantasy and horror complementing each other pretty nicely as well. And I know you were reading a lot of Conan stories over the last couple of
yeah,
months. So I was kind of curious to see how that factored in at all to kind of like overall experience with like fantasy because it like Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft were very good like friends. They
mhm,
wrote each other all the time, and you can kind of see some of those ideas bleeding in
yeah.
as he kind of goes
Well,
on.
for me, and I was just probably should rephrase. For me, the sci-fi felt like a natural extension of things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not less, not in general, but for me specifically.
I'm not
Um,
calling you out, by the way. I was
no,
just
no, no, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. I
yeah.
just felt like I should clarify for chat. Um, the um, I reread the Conan stuff well after I'd published all of it, so I think that horror does. I don't know. I think it depends on how you approach fantasy. Conan the Barbarian is very pulp
Hmm.
style, which I think, because of the nature of pulp, horror tends to go in pretty mix pretty well in those environments.
Yeah.
Um, because pulp is all very like emotional and passionate and a lot less clinical than now, I haven't read Brandon Sanderson, but from how people describe it with the magic systems, it's a little bit more on the mechanical side. Not saying he can't be passionate, but like it's definitely has its rules and play settings and balance and that kind of thing. Um, like the world building is very extensive.
It
Like, not
is
saying there's
very
not,
much
yeah.
it is very much a case where it's like and I've read a little bit of Brandon Sanderson. I think I'd read Warbreaker. And like, don't get me wrong, he is actually a very good writer, but like
Mhm.
his explanation of kind of like fantasy, kind of like especially magic, it almost feels like video game mechanics a little bit.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the impression I get, kind of adding on to your point.
Yeah. Sorry, Nikolai asked, so what are the sequel names? So, Third Test, Second Initiative, and First and Final Sovereign. I'm hoping that third book will be out. Um, I just had a baby, so giving a release date is kind of a little sketchy, but I'm hoping um, early next year is going to be the release date, hopefully, for that. So, fingers crossed. So,
Fingers crossed. Having a baby is a little bit of a life changer.
yeah, yeah, it is. But in a good way.
Yeah,
Definitely in a good way.
yeah, definitely. All
Mhm.
right, let's move on to another question. And this is going to be a very interesting one to ask. So, out of the characters you ended up writing, ask a very difficult question. Which one did you end up changing your mind on the most? Specifically, did they become more likable? Did you end up hating them more as the story kind of went on? Or did you discover things about them that you didn't even know yourself until a certain point?
Well, there was a character, and there's a lot of characters in the second initiative, so please don't be mad at me that and I had to change a couple names around, so, and it's been a minute.
There's no judgment from
There's,
me. I forget a
thank you.
lot.
Yeah, there's one character in the second initiative, um, who originally I had him kind of just being this kind of whiny fellow, and um not didn't really think too much of him. And then uh I went through the course of the story, and he just started gaining more and more of a personality. Uh, he's a was a chubbier fellow that wasn't taking care of himself, so he got ribbed by his crewmate on the second initiative. And then by the time I get to his death scene, um, I'm I'm crying actually while I'm writing it because um he goes out in a way where he's had his own little character arc of going from a kind of uh sort of a step below the everyman where he's not quite in the hero category.
Hmm.
But he just has this arc of coming into his own and starting to connect more with Katina and like want to just be a little bit kinder to her as she is a test subject on the second initiative. She's not really a person in the eyes of the researchers, and he just slowly becomes more and more humanized and connects more and becomes a more sympathetic person. And then by the end, it was just when uh, when I'm writing from the perspective of the person who kills him, where she's kind of like mentally wanting him to cuss her out or say something terrible to justify her killing him.
Mm.
He just looks up at her and says, "I am a good man," and that's the last thing he says on this earth. And I just sit back and I'm like, I this is the first character death I've ever written in the entirety of my my work that I've actually ever been like uh disturbed by in my own
Yeah.
like it felt correct for the story and it had the way it did, but it just had this just the emotional impact of the death. It just reminded me how much he'd changed and that he was never going to come home.
Yeah.
So,
It
um,
there's an extra layer of tragedy to it as well, where it's like the line "I'm a good man." It's as if he's not only proven it to her, he's also proven it to himself.
yeah.
And for me, that's
You
tragic.
not you remember the character, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and yeah, and it's I don't yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there's a part of me that wishes he had lived, but I think from that me wishing that he died, I think his death was correct in the grand scheme of things, even though it wasn't something that I was planning from the beginning.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Sometimes these things just happen, like, you don't necessarily plan it, but it just happens, and it'll shock you sometimes.
yeah,
It can be a little harrowing, at least in my
yeah,
experience.
yeah. The final book is a book that I'm not really dreading in a
Mhm.
way, but there's parts it's going to be thematically the heaviest
Yeah.
of the three books. And there's one part in particular where that I kind of know is going to be there. And it's a subject that is very disturbing in a lot of ways. It is going to sit kind of with me for a while, but it feels like it has to be there
I feel like that's
in
one
a
of the
sense.
tightropes of being an author in a way. It's
Yeah.
like, dealing with the idea so it's like some ideas or even subject matters are naturally going to drive people away. It'll offend others,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
there's no, like, happy medium, or, like, you
Yeah.
can find a happy medium, but even then, you're still gonna,
Yeah.
like, turn some people away.
Yeah. It's I tend to lean into religious themes a lot in the books. They're never overtly Christian,
Right.
but this final book is going to be very much inspired by um the Old Testament in terms of like and the villain of the story is going to be heavily based on like Baal and Moloch and his worshippers. Um and sort of this idea of um this evil was allowed to remain in this small way, and because it was not destroyed entirely thousands of years ago, this evil has grown like like a cancer on this planet.
Mm.
And now Katina is tasked with finally destroying it once and for all. Um, so it's gonna be probably a little heavier, but I think it's gonna be a fitting end to the trilogy. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, as far as my 2 cents, like I'm all for taking risks when it comes to stories. Like for
yeah,
me, that's part. Like even if it doesn't hit, that's part of what makes
yeah.
storytelling so grand. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I
Thank you.
and like my experience reading the second initiative, I by the end especially, I was starting to see some of those themes where it's like this feels a little Old Testament, but it's in a very good way. Like
Mm,
so yeah, I can already like see some hints of that coming along, and I'm excited to see where it's gonna go. I'm really
thank
looking
you.
forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Speaking of dark themes, I think we talked earlier about wanting to bring up Blood Meridian,
Yep. Here
so
we go.
it
All
seems
right.
like the appropriate time.
Time to talk Blood Meridian because we both read the book. I know you
Or
read some of it. I've read the whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it's quite a book.
It's a book.
Um, it is a book. I would actually also thank you for stopping by, Nikolai. Um,
Have a
good
great night,
talking with you.
Nikolai.
I it's so weird because when I started discussing Cormac McCarthy
Hmm.
on Twitter, um, people started using the term like misery and gore, like the term POR and like that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I feel like Cormac McCarthy is kind of like a weird case. Like
Yeah,
you could probably compare him to like Kentaro Miura and Berserk, where it's like what he writes is like a measure darker than
yeah,
everything else.
yeah, and I just don't feel like those are fair terms.
Yeah,
I have watched enough YouTube videos on disturbing movie and manga uh like that I know for a fact there are far more cynically driven works that fall into those titles, and I just don't think Cormac McCarthy fits, and I feel like it's an unfair term to lay on his work.
yeah, I would agree because it's like you and I were even talking about it, like where you pretty much had to quit Blood Meridian, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
no shame whatsoever because it's a
yeah,
heavy book. Like
yeah,
it's about terrible people, even though it's like expertly written, in my opinion.
yeah.
Like,
It's and that's why I think it works. It is as terrible as it is because it is so beautifully engaging.
yeah,
There's I think it was actually the chapter before I quit where I was just reading his introduction and his description of the scene, and it was just so there was something actually very beautiful about it, how he described the lightning and coming off of the like the cloaks that they're wearing, and it's such a beautiful visualization. Um and I think that um I don't know, there were people who were like it would have been it would be a better world for this not to be written, and I'm like, I don't there are a lot of books that come out where I could agree with that, but I don't think the world would be better off without Blood Meridian in it.
Right.
Um,
And like it's a weird case because I agree with you. Like
yeah.
I remember seeing a few people say this where I agree. It's like to hone in my thoughts on Blood Meridian, it's like it's an amazing book, but I
Mhm.
don't recommend it to like a casual reading audience. Where
Mm,
it's just kind of like a weird case where it's like you kind of have to know what you're getting into.
yeah, it's like okay, to I feel like I haven't watched the movie Hundreds of Beavers yet. I it's on my list of movies to watch, but it's a similar I think it's a similar vibe where it's a silent movie where the comedy is all like Charlie Chaplin, and if you don't go into it expecting that or understanding it, you're probably not going to have as good of a time as if you're expecting an audio based movie.
Oh yeah.
Um, so it's definitely a yeah. I I don't want us to get pulled off YouTube because there are things that you probably can't just discuss out loud on it. But
We'll
it's
skirt around it.
yeah, yeah. Um, there's also just a I think one thing that Cormac McCarthy has a beautiful gift for is the ability to impress upon the reader this feeling of just dread and doom. Like you can it f- it follows you from the prose and onto your shoulders. Like you can feel it physically in your marrow. It's not you don't put the book down and you forget about it. It just sticks with you. And it's I think that was it was why I was able to tear through about 200 pages of it in the first day.
Hmm.
But because I knew that if I didn't want to extend out the reading as long as possible, even though it's a beautiful book, it's not one I wanted to linger on.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point, and this is actually why I quit reading, is that I was reading the book and I felt like I was starting to skim the book.
Mm,
And that's not where I want to be in terms of evaluating the worth of material is after skimming.
right.
I just don't think that's a fair evaluation. The nice one, Herman. Uh, but no, it was
Thank you, Herman.
yeah. I feel like if you want to find out if you are even close to being wanting to read the Blood Meridian, I would start with the Road.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so weird because you would think that The Road is the darker book. It's actually more forgiving,
yeah.
strangely enough.
Um, well, no, it's oddly enough, okay, this is gonna be uh maybe sound odd, but I was very pregnant when I was reading The Road.
Mhm.
Um, I felt it was an oddly hopeful book at the end.
Yeah, I did too. I was surprised because I had watched the movie and I was like, "Oh man, this is depressing." I'm like,
Yeah,
"I don't wanna read the
I
book." Read the
well,
book, I'm
I
like, "It's good, it's really good."
yeah, I read the book first, I believe, and then watched the movie. And I asked my dad if he'd heard of it. He's like, "Oh, that's the book that made." He's like, "That is the most depressing movie I've ever seen in my whole life,"
Yeah.
and I agree with that. And Vigo Mortensen does a really good job with
Oh,
it.
yeah, he kills it in that movie.
Yeah. Um, the uh, the Road is just it feels like this very gray book. Um,
Mm.
like in terms of the prose and everything. And I think that's why him playing with punctuation works because it kind of creates like this lulling poetry almost to it where it's just like almost hypnotic in a way with it
Yeah,
drawing you in.
it's like, there's surprisingly little flourish to the writing and the prose, and the
Yeah.
dialogue is similar, so it's like but it's like it kind of like you said, as you're reading more and more of it, even if it's just one character saying, "Okay, I trust you," it's like you're locked in, like
Yeah.
you believe it.
Yeah. Um I yeah, it's uh but the reason why I feel like it's hopeful is that the father keeps going. He keeps going and keeps going and keeps going beyond all hope that there, cuz he, as far as he knows, there is no end to the road, quote unquote.
Yeah,
There is no end to any of this suffering. But instead of, well, ending his son in the first couple pages, he says, no, we're going to keep going and fighting. And he fights for his son this whole time and fighting against all hope. And at the end, when, with how it ends, it's just like, yeah, there is a chance that there is, because you run into the family where it's just like, and I don't want to spoil too much, but when you get to that ending where he finds, the son finds safe harbor from the sacrifice of the father, it's like it was it was worth it
yeah.
in a way. Like he fought and as long and hard as he could to make sure his son was safe.
It's so weird because maybe I need to rewatch the film because when I had watched the movie and it soured me from reading the book actually
Mm,
was that when I watched the movie I was like, man, this is just depressing. But and it's good, don't get me wrong. But
yeah.
I read the book and by the end I'm in a similar boat where I'm like, it felt like it ended on a very positive turn. Like it wasn't just hopeless. Like there was a point to it. You feel
Well, and
that
I
it ended on a very positive note.
yeah, and I feel like that's the power of Cormac McCarthy's work, is that his he can change your mood and influence your mood based on his writing, and he has you so connected in emotionally to this story, where he can turn it hopeful by the end. And I think that's what was lacking in the movies, because you don't have his prose.
Yeah.
um so I think that that's that.
There's like a
um
metaphorical level to his writing as well, where it's like
yeah,
the characters almost feel larger in life. And
yeah,
yeah.
almost like a Pilgrim's Progress kind of thing, or a Dante's Inferno kind of thing, which
Yeah.
just reminds me I need to read Paradise Lost. I need to add that to the list again.
I do too. I have a whole stack of books I still need to read.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm working my way through now. I need to just not buy any more books until I've read about three more.
So, my last question related to Cormac McCarthy.
Mhm.
What do you think about his antagonists?
Um, well, it's difficult, I think, because um it's hard to judge the judge, haha, uh, entirely, because you don't see how this. I didn't see how the story ends.
Mhm.
For me, like, I was talking to my husband, who hadn't read the book but had watched the Wendigoon video in its entirety, and I was joking with him. I was like, I can't tell if the judge is like, because he's borderline right now. I feel like he could become almost cartoonishly evil at some point, and he gives me a look, and I'm like, what? Does he like eat a baby or something? And he's like, he just shrugs, and I'm like,
He
does he
does
like
some pretty
eat?
terrible stuff.
Yeah. Alyssa, not buying more books challenge level impossible. I'm working on it. I still have State of Fear, Martian Chronicles. Uh, I have too many books that I still need to read.
Don't like
We're working
don't
on it.
don't get me wrong. I'm right there with you, Alyssa. So
Yeah.
there's no shame in this interview, okay? Let's ignore
We're,
the chat
this
for a
is
little bit.
this is a safe space.
It's a safe
The
space.
yes. But so the judge is kind of like, when he gets to the part where he like buys a box of puppies just to drown them. It's just like, why?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
this is where
why are you the way that you are? Like,
I love to ask people, the very first chapter of the book when the judge is introduced,
yeah,
what was your reaction? Because for me, like, for me, I think Griffith is a bad person, a terrible person for
yeah,
reference. The judge is worse.
yeah.
He's that
Well,
bad.
here's the thing with Griffith, and I don't think that Griffith did nothing wrong. Crowd
He
is
did a lot
right, but
wrong.
he has like a purpose and a meaning to his actions, and the judge, it just there is and like he has a desire, a purpose, something that a human being can identify with. And I feel like the judge is just like this almost inhuman force of nature in he's not really, he's almost not a human protagonist. He's feels more like this supernatural entity that just magnifies and puts out all of this just evil into the world.
The best way
Like,
I can describe him is he feels like he's devilishly smart, and
yeah.
that feels like it's a very important detail, but he also feels like that kid that would just set a building on fire for fun.
Yeah, well, I also started to wonder if he is a something supernatural, if there's something up with that, because there's this one part, and I'm trying not to get too graphic, where he takes the rock and hits the horse over the head,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, is he supposed to be not human? Because I feel like he's hinting that this is like this almost Wendigo kind of creature.
Yeah.
Um, Or I mean, which would require me to finish the book and like do a more thorough analysis of it. And I don't
So
really have the stomach for it right now. But
without like spoiling anything, and I don't want to get graphic at all because
yeah,
we've been
but
talking about Cormac McCarthy for a while, but my interpretation of Judge Holden is he's kind of like, it always feels like he's the inner monster that
yeah,
humans are capable of. It's like this is the absolute worst that a person can do, or among the worst. Like,
yeah,
that's
and
always what it felt like.
he's also described as appearing suddenly to people and getting them to do horrible things. And
Yeah.
then, like, I don't know, I almost want to look up a couple video essays going into his character, because it does kind of make me wonder if he is meant to be like, I think saying is he Satan, and like the to quote is it Satan, like the Dana Carvey thing, is a little bit on the nose, but it almost feels like he is just this magnifier, or of like what everybody else is feeling, or like just the evil of man in that situation, because he
Yeah.
appears suddenly in these like pressure situations, and then sort of influences the people near him to cave to their worst impulses.
Yeah. He's kind of an embodiment of like human impulse, like what happens when
Yeah,
you completely give in. Like, I
yeah,
that's what it feels like to me, a
yeah,
lot of ways.
yeah.
Um, go ahead.
Uh,
Sorry.
Darren said, no, sorry, I was distracted by the chat. Darren said a Jungian archetype, and kind of, yeah. Just sort of, I don't know. I feel like you could do like a full video essay on the nature of the judge. And that's another reason why I again, I think it's a little unfair to just label it complete nihilism, because there is something to dive into, but
Yeah.
it's also, I can't really blame people for feeling that way based on like a cursory examination of the first couple
Like,
chapters.
I can't say that Blood Meridian doesn't have a nihilist edge. I feel like it does, but I'm like, that feels only
Mm,
like one aspect of the book. It doesn't feel like
yeah.
her life is terrible, yo. I feel like there's a bit more to dig into, kind of like what you said. I do
Yeah.
want to ask this though.
Mhm.
What was your response to the visual description of Judge Holden not having a single hair on his body?
I kind of felt he looked a little bit like my thought was manatee.
Yeah. For me, it's like, and this is one thing I
If
love
I
about Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah.
He's very, in my opinion, he's very good at describing his antagonist just in ways that'll subtly make you go, "There's something off about this person."
Yeah, but like you could see someone like that in real life, but also like very odd sort of person.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just like when he was floating in that he was taking the bath and it was just like manatee.
Yeah. Well, it also describes his face like, baby-like, and I'm like, "Get this image out of my head. I hate this so much."
Yeah, just the visual gets very under your skin.
Yeah. I
Like
think it's brilliant, but it's oh,
just like mm. And that's why it's just like again, like I can't blame people for viewing his work that way, but it's just there's a very brilliant nature to his writing that I think that if you um I don't think that everyone has to read it, but I think if you're at all interested in reading American literature, you could reading something of his work I think would be good, even if it's just like The Road. Or I've heard that All the Pretty Horses is also very good, but it's kind of like the Cormac McCarthy light,
yeah.
where it's just like it's kind of a little bit like Cormac McCarthy, but it's just like a more romantic kind of thing.
Yeah,
Which
there's also, No Country for Old Men. That's another one.
yeah, I think I ordered that one and it hasn't shown up yet. But
Yeah.
I also feel like I've read a lot of Cormac McCarthy recently, so I feel
Yeah,
like
no.
I'm allowed to have about a break and read some.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I completely understand. Like,
yeah,
the best way I can describe Cormac McCarthy is it's like, and I hate to use the word deconstructionist because I feel like it's used all the time. And
yeah,
there's usually kind of like a stigma around it as well, where it's like it kind of usually means like, oh, this is gonna get into like Redditor black pill talk or something like that, where it's
well,
like life is horrible, stuff like that. But I feel like Cormac McCarthy is like the best example of deconstructionist writing, where it's like it's
yeah.
done extremely well.
Well, it's I don't know if it's deconstructionist because I think it's more very brutally honest
Yeah,
writing, and especially in terms of because as much as we wince and we like cringe at some of the stuff in Blood Meridian, this stuff was actually happening.
yeah, that it was
Like
like
this is
actual
real.
filibuster situation.
Yeah, like like the Comanches were a thing.
Yeah,
Like they were an empire in the Midwest for a while, and it was just a very brutal time in history. And it's I don't want to get on a whole nother rabbit train, but I feel like there's a whole discussion to be had on how quickly we have forgotten how brutal life actually is in general, or in some societies even today. um and that that's I think that's why I can't necessarily say that he's entirely nihilistic, because it just feels like the Terry Deary horrible histories, but like on cocaine a little
yeah,
bit.
and,
Like
even how I use the term nihilist isn't necessarily like, "Oh, life is horrible." It's more kind of like,
mhm,
take a neutral stance. Here's how it was back in the time. I'm not going
yeah,
to say it was necessarily good or bad. You're left to make your own judgment. In that sense, you could
yeah,
kinda call it nihilist.
yeah. And I think the deconstruction term you're mentioning does go into that kind of like that ground of not really giving into the whole the romanticization of the West,
Mhm.
but also not going into the full um academics of like I don't know. I don't want to get into social stuff, but like how people have been like brutal like brutally like just tried to destroy the West as westerns as a genre,
Yeah,
where it's just like putting a lot of modern kind of morality on moral standards on what was like 200, 300 years ago at this point. So
I'm gonna try and make my best critical drinker impression. Modern audiences.
yeah, that that basically that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ki I don't wanna I don't know if a Mel Brooks comparison is appropriate here, but kind of kind of like sort of maybe which is note to self, need to rewatch Blazing Saddles
I love
soon.
Blazing Saddles so much.
It's so good, so good.
Yeah.
Uh, also hello, Eric.
Great
Um,
to see you in the chat, Eric. I hope
yeah,
all is well.
yeah,
We are talking books and Mel
yes,
Brooks.
books and Mel Brooks. Brooks and books.
Brooks and books.
Uh,
Uh,
see, were there any other topics we could dive into?
yeah, I had a few, and we are
Oh,
getting to a point where just kind of like in the process of wrapping up. We
yeah.
it is getting a little late.
Hmm.
But I was curious about this, and this is a question I like to ask everybody I bring on for an interview.
Okay.
If any of your stories could be adapted into another medium, like a movie, a video game, or a comic, what would you prefer to see it like?
Um, hmm. I don't know about video game because I feel like if I any of my books became video games, they would be like the what was that game that came out recently? Like
Um,
the
Mixtape.
mixtape. Yeah. It's like when does the game actually start? I've been sitting here for 45 minutes and I haven't touched the keyboard once.
Wait, I can't die? What?
Yeah, not to say that people can't die, but it's not really video game based. Um I I don't know. I think uh if it's in context of, are we talking about like today or just in general? Like
Just
what
in
like
general.
yeah. I feel like I would love for let's see. I think it'd be a lot of fun to either get my short stories adapted into like little one or two issue comic books, or like a little graphic novel. I think some of the horror would be fun in that. I also, but I think that I would like to see my sci-fi in like 8 episode mini series. I think would be fun.
Mhm.
Um, I think that there is some give and take with like the how streaming has affected television, but I do think like an 8 to 10 episode solid adaptation I think would be the ideal for a lot of books, including my own.
I don't know why, but I could almost see some of your books getting sort of like a Stephen King like miniseries adaptation and it working very well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that um I honestly think, and this is not including the fact that Netflix has kind of done a bang up job when it comes to adaptations
Oh,
recently.
they're stellar at it. Trust me,
Yeah.
bro.
Um I I think that miniseries is actually the preferred method when it comes to adapting, because it gives a little bit more wiggle room and a little bit more time than say a movie, because I feel like movies have to cut a lot usually
Mhm.
in order to make it work. That's why I think short stories honestly make better books, but better movies. But that's a whole uh, long discussion in a nutshell there. But that's kind of what I think, to be honest.
No, I completely agree. Random thought. You want to
Mhm.
know one movie I think would make for an excellent short story? It even feels like a bit of a short story.
Which one?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of pulp influences in there. Um, I think I told my dad once it felt like a uh what's it? A old wushu movie told from the perspective of an American, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
like the
what if an American truck driver was in a kung fu movie?
yeah, basically. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Send him to Detroit. No, not Detroit.
No, not Detroit. Like,
I need to
at
watch
least
that
it's
movie.
better than California. Ooh, shots fired.
Ugh. I mean, actually, there there are a couple competitors now, but that's a whole nother that's a whole nother stream on somebody else's channel at this point. Um,
Yeah.
there's a couple competitors for that title now.
All right. So this
Calm
is gonna
calm
be
down, ladies. There's enough awfulness for everybody. You don't need to
exactly.
all go that way at once.
All right. So this is probably gonna be my last question for you, and then
Okay.
we can go into a few chat questions if there are any. Um,
Mhm.
so for both yourself and the chat, what would you say is like one like writing tip or like bit of advice you would give like your a younger version of you, or even like anybody who's getting into writing? Like, what would be your
Mhm.
general advice to them?
I would say, uh, read as much as you can, and and write short stories. If you've never written anything before, start with a short story because I compare writing as a discipline to getting to the gym or running a marathon. Uh, you don't go from being on a couch all day every day to running a marathon overnight. You have to, I think a lot of people get caught up in um sort of uh, trying to make the great American novel the first time they start to write, and
Yeah.
it goes poorly because they haven't developed the discipline of sitting down and just typing. When you do short stories, you get like a little reward when you're done with a little dopamine hit because you've completed something. Um, and then you're like, I did it. I completed it. Okay, let's go back and edit it and clean it up and reread it. And I just feel like those disciplines are easier to produce when you're doing a shorter work. So it could even end up being a novella. Or if you want to, when you're done with your short story, you can expand on it and make it into like a longer short story or novella, whatever. But I genuinely think that um, you have to treat writing like it's like especially if this is something you really want to do, is you have to just teach yourself how to be able to sit and type for a while because and ignore distractions, and that just takes time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I know when I started writing, I think it was just for like 30 minutes a day, and it just kind of went from there, or
yeah,
something along those lines. Like not much, but it's like that consistency that
yeah,
gets you farther than anything else.
yeah. I think Jim Butcher says the first step is just gluing your butt to the seat or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he's not wrong.
listen, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
All right. So for everybody in the chat, I know we're kind of like getting into the final few minutes of this lovely little interview. I think we both had quite a bit of fun. Did any of you
yeah.
all have any questions for Miss Alyssa Hazel? I know we are just getting into wrapping a few things up. So any like list all your Blood Meridian questions. I know there's plenty. Uh but if you have any writing questions or anything along those lines, book recommendations, now's the time to ask them before it's too late.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. But let's see. So I am kind of curious while we're just kind of waiting to see what questions might be asked.
Mhm.
Um, I know we were talking a bit on where Katina is going to be going next with book 3.
Mhm.
Do you have any plans for some of your other series? Any other book ideas that are kind of in the works?
Well, I know that Among the Juniper Trees is kind of it's done. That was the duology. It's good.
Hmm.
All good to go now. I'm not writing any more in that direct series. Um I am having a short story come out hopefully soon in Battleborn issue 2. So they're getting some things settled and hopefully those will be sent out fairly soon. Um, then have that third book. After that, I'm not quite sure actually. I'm not sure if I want to go and do another horror collection because it's been a while since I've done something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I might expand the universe of the third test a little bit. I might do a couple stories or another book in the Among the Juniper Trees world. I also have an idea for just a uh I might try my hand at a sort of semi Rapunzel retelling
Oh.
um that I've had an idea for a while. Then there was also a character from one of my early story collections where I wanted to expand on her a little bit. But urban fantasy is kind of one of those genres where I feel like it had a huge wave a while ago and had a lot of stuff going into it. Um, but there is a character in a couple of my short stories called Dr. Amelia Frost, who is a vampire doctor who runs a blood bank, which is essentially like an Uber Eats location for vampires. So she pays students and the homeless for their blood, and then the vampires who want ethically sourced blood, quote unquote, or just want to stay out of the public eye, can get their blood from her. And I was thinking about doing a series of collection of short stories or things like that, where she because she's a doctor, not really like a Alice kind of from or when what's her name? Alice from Underworld. Like she's not like a vampire fighter. She's just a doctor.
Yeah.
And like the world has become smaller, in a sense where there are more vampire hunters, like people are taking more people are trying to take pot shots at the supernatural, that kind of thing. So she's like, okay, it's kind of actually dangerous for me to be doing these deliveries by myself. So her recruiting other people to be her delivery and people, and um dealing with all these kind of the social kind of political things that are happening there. Um But, that's been something that's just been in the works for a while, and it's kind of one of those, I don't know if there's a I know there's probably an audience for it, but I don't know if it's the one I've been building for a while.
Yeah.
And I feel like urban fantasy with vampire is kind of something that's been done a lot.
It's weird because it's like, and I'm an advocate for like, even if it's technically out of your like established quote unquote audience, like I'm a big
Mm,
fan of like taking risks. But
yeah.
you're never gonna believe this because a few months back, I still haven't actually put up my review, and I feel bad because I'm way behind on it. I forced myself to read through Morning Glory Milking Farm, and
Oh, no.
funny you should mention blood banks though, and like willing like people who are like giving their
Yeah.
blood because there is a gourmet vampire blood restaurant. They're
Exactly.
they're called
Exactly.
feeder bleeders.
Yeah, and also, not to like rain on anyone's parade, but I also just like there's an audience that might come in with a vampire urban fantasy that I don't necessarily want.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go down that route of urban fantasy. I'm I'm
No,
just
I think,
saying.
and here's the thing, I don't even like writing romance that much, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
because well, here's the thing, like I all of my stuff is very like organic and built up, and the idea of kind of assuming from the beginning that these two characters are going to get together by the end just feels wrong.
I feel like it means a lot more if it happens naturally as the story progresses, where it's like
Yeah.
if two characters are getting together, it's like that's when it feels a lot more natural, but it's much harder to plan that out like That's even happened with some of my writing. I planned for 2 characters to get together, but by the end, I'm like, "Hang on, they have." It's like, it should probably be more of the opposite.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's just yeah. And again, marketing romance is so tricky right now. Like
Yeah,
if it's like, do you even want to court that audience? Because yeah, that there's going to be money in it, but there's a price to pay on the other side of it. I feel like is like
yeah,
you if you feed the beast, uh, they're gonna want more. So
yeah, there's a parallel with artists there as well, not just writers, where it's like, it does technically make you more money, but it's like, once you start feeding that beast, it's like, that
yeah,
becomes the expectation.
yeah, yeah, and I yeah. That's
Yeah.
a that again. That's a the conversation for another live
Yeah.
stream.
Uh,
Um,
Robert Wilde did have one question in the
mhm,
Twitch chat, though. He says,
yeah.
"My question is, what, if anything, do you like to listen to when writing? Or perhaps do you listen to anything while reading?"
I don't really listen to anything while reading. While writing, it depends. I sometimes will throw on let's see. Um Recently I've done like some well, not really editing, but like a read over thing for another writer. And I listened to a lot of like 80s synth. Like I was playing the soundtrack from Manhunter,
Ooh,
the
nice.
that Michael Mann movie. And then The Keep, that other Michael Mann movie. Um I think it depends. Like I'll do 80 synth is kind of fun for some things. I like listening to classical sometimes. With my some of my pulp writing, I listen to Mongolian heavy metal because it just felt in line with the character that I was writing. Yeah, she was based on she's a kind of a Mongolian horse archer with the serial numbers filed off a little bit. Um, so having that as my like listening kind of helped me get into the headspace of the character a little bit.
I don't know why
In
you're
turn,
reminding me of this. Like, perhaps it is the Mongolian metal bit. Um, like, one of the soundtracks I like to listen to every now and again is like, I know everybody knows Mick Gordon for the Doom soundtrack he did, but
mm,
he also did one for Killer Instinct, which is incredible, very
I'll
underrated. He has
write that
one
down.
he has a track where he actually teaches him Tibetan throat singing just so he can sing it for a single character, and it sounds incredible. I
Nice.
I love it so much. You talking about Mongolian metal like that, it just
Yep.
reminded me distinctly of that.
It's the Who. Darren. That is the band I'll throw on when I'm doing that kind of thing.
The Who. I'm gonna
Um,
have to note that down as well. That sounds awesome.
yeah, it's there's just one called Genghis Khan, and that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, that it's like a very yeah, you just have to listen to it. But yeah, I did a lot of listening to like Mass Effect, the soundtrack from that when I was doing some writing stuff as well with a second initiative. So more space things for more space things, and sometimes a little bit of horror in there as well, like the soundtrack from Suspiria. So little of this, little of that.
If you ever find yourself writing fantasy again, I like this is one thing I really like, and I got this from another writer is he puts on dungeon synth whenever he writes fantasy, and it's like perfect for the writing mood. That's one I
Nice.
really like to do. Uh,
Sounds good to me.
yeah, Bone Crag joins in the Twitch chat. He says specifically the song "The Same" just evokes a strong image of marching warriors through a wasteland. I'm gonna have to
Nice.
check this out. That sounds great.
Mm,
He's also saying, so this is Drama Goblin. He says, "Hi Otter, hi Alyssa. I think I might have your
right.
book on my Kindle Unlimited." Incredible, sir.
Nice.
That sounds great.
Always.
All right. Well, I think that is a wonderful place for us to wrap up this stream. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for joining me tonight. This has been a really fun interview, I gotta say.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to everything you write next. I'm looking forward to your third book in oh, why am I blanking on your series name? I feel so
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. Um yeah, but I'm looking forward to it for sure. So yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight, and I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday night. Until
You too.
next time. God bless.
Bye. Mhm.